the numbers suggest the costs are rising. So here's a question. Are we executing a recovery plan, or are we passing a budget that's already dead on arrival? Join us inside Lead Story Prime tonight at 8. That's it for today's show. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Stories Global Lead. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, CVM News.
Thanks for joining us for CVM News at noon for this Monday, March 30, 2026. I'm Amoy Harriet. Up first this afternoon, a 32-year-old farmer is now dead and another man in serious condition in hospital after being involved in a motorcycle accident along a section of Numparial Main Road in Little London, Westmoreland on Sunday. The deceased farmer has been identified as Nigel Kirkwood of Moreland District, Grange Hill in the parish. Reports said that about 2:30 a.m., Kirkwood and a pillion were traveling on a motorcycle from the directions of Negril towards Sheffield. Upon reaching a section of the roadway, Kirkwood lost control of the motorcycle, resulting in a collision which threw both men into the roadway. They sustained head and body injuries and were rushed to hospital, where Kirkwood was pronounced dead and the pillion was admitted in serious condition. Kirkwood is the second motorcyclist to be killed in the parish over the past week. Meanwhile, detectives from the Criminal Investigation Branch in Montego Bay, St. James are now searching for a motive for Friday evening's killing of a man on Catherine Lane in the Second City. According to information received by our newsroom just after 7 o'clock last Friday, the deceased, identified as 24-year-old Trey Gordon, unemployed of 20 Barnett Lane in Montego Bay, was walking from his home, and on reaching Catherine Lane, he was shot by unknown assailants. Gordon ran and fell in the vicinity of a bar on the lane. Police responding to the shooting found his body motionless on the ground with what appeared to be gunshot wounds to the head and upper body. He was rushed to hospital, where he was pronounced dead. To other news now, Jamaica could be facing the early signs of a prolonged dry period as water levels at the Hermitage Dam in St. Andrew continue to trend downward. The National Water Commission, NWC, recently revealed that levels at the critical facility are now approaching the 65% mark, a threshold that typically triggers heightened conservation and regulation measures. Now, while there has been rainfall over the past few days, officials say inflows into the dam have not been sufficient to reverse the decline, raising concerns about the possibility of an extended dry spell. Against this backdrop, questions are now being raised about national preparedness and whether existing water management strategies are enough to withstand prolonged dry conditions. We put this question to Water Minister Matthew Samuda.
The country of Jamaica has a bimodal rainfall pattern. It's common at this time of the year. You'd already have been deep into water restrictions. In fact, last year you'd have had water restrictions 7 weeks earlier than we would have imposed at this stage. The rains associated with Hurricane Melissa and indeed the rainy period in December would have, offset some of the usual January restrictions that you usually have. Restrictions usually start in January, not towards the tail end of March or early April.
Illegal dumping continues to impact garbage collection across Jamaica, with the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, warning that it's draining resources and disrupting schedules. Kevin Black explains.
Illegal dumping is costing the government significant resources, with cleanup operations taking hours and disrupting regular garbage collection schedules across communities. According to Community Relations Manager at the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, Shannon Williams, some dump sites are even recreated within hours of being cleared.
So you will have people who comply, but of course you will always have those who refuse to comply. Simply put, some people refuse to have a bin at their gate. Despite the trucks going into communities to remove the waste, some people refuse to have bins at their gate. What they opt to do instead is to bring their waste from their homes and place it in illegal dump sites. Sometimes they place it on the main road because, of course, the trucks will have to clean the main roads. So the truck may come, clean the area now, and within an hour or two, he starts with 1 and 2 bags and then an entire dump site.
She says illegal dumping is straining resources and undermining collection efficiency.
Rather than coming to your gate, taking up the 3 or 4 bags from your bin, which will take less than a minute, they have to be shoveling and raking and rebagging and the waste, and so that takes hours. So much time is spent cleaning these dump sites on a daily basis. It delays us from adhering to our collection schedules.
Williams maintains that current penalties are not strong enough to deter offenders, with greater focus now being placed on enforcement.
Well, $10,000, $2,000, those are not deterrents. As you can see, people continue to dispose of the waste because the fines really, it's affordable. People will just pay it and keep doing what they're doing. Mr. Gordon would have mentioned earlier in an article that he is now placing more attention to the enforcement department, so they will have way much more work to do in order to bring more persons before the courts so they can now understand and feel the effects of what they're doing.
Kevin Black reporting for CVM News.
The government is defending its latest 2026-27 budget, with Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon pointing to what she says is early progress on key promises. More from Kevin Black.
Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon says the government is already delivering on key manifesto promises, citing investments in STEAM schools, skills training and youth employment as a part of the 2026-2027 budget. She was addressing the Senate on Friday.
Mr. President, this administration is not in the business of making decorative promises. We're in the business of performance. We said we would create stronger pathways from learning to earning. And now we're doing exactly that through the tertiary LEAP program, and I'll speak about that some more. We said we would expand access to skills training, and we're now advancing one of the boldest steps in that direction for Jamaicans. We said we would modernize apprenticeship, and now Apprenticeship 3.0 is taking real shape.
Senator Morris-Dixon says education remains essential to national development, with new programs aimed at linking students directly to employment opportunities.
The pilot of the Tertiary Learn, Earn and Prosper program, which is really the Tertiary LEAP program, will provide a pathway for tertiary education into employment by offering paid on-the-job experience for students. So often they say you can't get the job because you don't have any job experience. So what we'll be doing is, while our students are studying, they will get these opportunities in private and public sector to work, and they suggested what they wanted the salary to be, and we worked to see if we could really accommodate it.
The minister also defended the government's record on youth development, noting a significant decline in youth unemployment and expanded support for young entrepreneurs.
Youth unemployment in 2015 was over 30%. The last set of data we had, youth unemployment was at 10.6%. If we're looking at the numbers in foreign, their youth unemployment rate is at 10.8%. We're at 10.6%. Those are the kinds of numbers we have to talk about.
Kevin Black for CVM News.
Let's head now to a break. More when we come back.
Can you do this?
Vitex, the vital solution for all your cleaning needs. Vitex laundry gel, one cap it goes a long way. Up to 100 wash and your clothes them right same way. It deep clean so no dirt no odor can stay. Vitex, the vital solution for all your cleaning needs. Vitex disinfectant kill germs, no delay. Vitex dishwashing liquid, with dirt and paint it don't play. Vitex bleach takes all the stains away. Vitex, distributed by
Welcome back to CVM News at Noon. Say no to qualified rights. That's the call from the Jamaica Beach Birthright Environmental Movement, JABEM, as concerns grow over the government's recently tabled beach policy. The group has planned a rally at Montego Bay Beach in St. Anne, warning that public access to Jamaica's coastline could be under threat. We're joined now by President of JABEM, Dr. Devon Taylor. Good afternoon, Dr. Taylor.
Good afternoon. Greetings.
Why did JABEM feel the need for this rally?
Well, I think this rally is about justice. The government just tabled a beach access policy that further entrench a colonial logic at the coastline, that further the dispossession and the disempowerment of the Jamaican people. It went further than the Beach Control Act of 1956 by allowing the sale of public beaches, the creation of artificial beaches that will further destroy the coastline, and to entrench in that policy, right, that Jamaicans have no rights. Any rights that we have to be conditional and conditioned on the license that whoever is operating an establishment, their country is subjected to that. And we are a country of rights. And so I think it is fitting that the public, show up and demonstrate to the country, that we do not want to continue this colonial law in our country.
Dr. Taylor, JABEM put out a release recently, I think it was a few days ago, where you guys rejected the beach access and management policy. What you said is that it's a colonial and capitalist instrument of disposition. That's strong language, Dr. Taylor. What makes you say that?
Well, it's clear. The Beach Control Act of 1956 is a pre-political independence document that from 1952, the Jamaican people were complaining about displacement from the foreshore, right? About being dispossessed and disempowered. And that was because the hotel industry was coming on stream then. There was a transition from banana and cane and sugar plantation economy to a new economy that is rooted in capitalist capture of land, capture of resources, and exploitation of people. So the root of the displacement of the dispossession at the coastline is not only rooted in colonialism, but it's also rooted in capitalism that never served the Jamaican people. And that is why we have to be fundamentally strong and very clear. And we're not mincing our words. Right? We are not talking about, when you talk about people earn money, construction of businesses. What we're looking at is a small bunch of elite that control most of the wealth. And that leads to inequality. right? And inequality requires discrimination to manifest itself. That is what's happening at the foreshore to the people of the country and to the land itself. And so we had to put that in the context of what history has teach us and what we are the lived reality of the Jamaican people right now. Hence that language.
Dr. Taylor, the government said that the policy is about structure and order, and we've seen over the last couple of years where, there have been reports of persons who are charging Jamaicans or tourists for going to free beaches or, different incidents like that. Do you agree with the government's position that this policy will bring some sort of order to our beaches?
Order, my sister. Who charges Jamaicans the most are hotel industry. You have to pay thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, right, to access the property, to access the beach. The hotel does not own the foreshore. They don't own the sea. And I want to be very clear about that because some people think the hotel owns the foreshore. They don't. The foreshore invested in the crown, right? The Crown Estate hold that in trust for the people of the country. Yet the hotel charges Jamaican people to use it. So, if we are alluding to, someone might, be the custodian of a space and people are charging to go there. We do not support fees for accessing beaches and river. We don't support it, right? And we are very, clear about that. But this is not going to bring any order. The foundation of the document is not about order. The foundation of the document is transferring the wealth of the nation to a few elites. That is the foundation of the document. So I don't want to be distracted about fees. The government is not giving Jamaicans people's rights. The government proposed to sell the Jamaican beaches. The government is proposing to codify into law the appropriation of the sea through the building of overwater bungalow. The government knows that we only have 150 miles of sandy beaches, so the government is allowing artificial beaches to be created, ripping out rock faces, and then telling the country that you will have no rights to that space. That is destruction, and that is putting money over people, right? So, listen, the policy, if you look at it very clearly, is consistent with a colonial architecture and is consistent with the transfer of wealth from the nation to a few. That is the classic example of the kind of inequality that capitalism breeds. And we are speaking about that.
Now, I want to pull up for our viewers the flyer that JABEM released with regards to this rally that's in a few days. And on the flyer, you mentioned eviction from the foreshore. Can you say who exactly are some of the persons who are at risk? And can you share any cases where, persons were actually pushed out?
Well, the idea around eviction from a foreshore, I can use a classic example of Montego Bay Beach. The Montego Bay Beach, you should look at the back of the policy on the fishing beaches, and you will see Montego Bay Beach is a beach that is recognized under the Fishing Industrial Act of 1976 as a fishing beach. Then you ask the question, where are the fisher folks from Montego Bay Beach? They no longer have access to Montego Bay Beach because they were evicted. So that's a classic example. The recreational and fishing users at Little Duns River can only go there 2 days per week. There is no rafting allowed in the Blue Lagoon, and they cease to register fishing vessels and fishermen to the Blue Lagoon. That's eviction. So these things are ongoing. And for the government to use the power, raw power, come before Parliament, advocate to the nation that we're putting in a policy, right? And this policy, you're not going to have any rights. We're going to sell your beaches. We're going to sell the sea, right? And we're going to allow for artificial beaches to be built and you're excluded. They are alienating and further entrenchment of colonial doctrine in the country, right? And they are evicting the nation from the foreshore because not all of we have money to pay for God, right? And so that is the context that, we are using to really make the case that we're being evicted from the coastline.
And Dr. Taylor, what solutions are you therefore putting on the table to protect public beach access?
Well, we have said from the beginning we start where the problem was codified into law, the Beach Control Act of 1956. We're saying that must be abolished. It must be rubbished. It must be thrown in the dustbin of history. It must be repealed and replaced. We want a policy that will start with all Jamaicans have fundamental rights of access that is unfettered to the foreshore, right? That is where we start. The details as to how, the conservation is, is regulated there. It's something that we can all have, discuss. Now, we want a seat at the table because we've been driving the discussion. There are other environmental groups that have been excluded from this discussion. And we will formulate a policy that give the environment the rights of nature, the rights to exist. So no human being, I'm not even myself, will have the say over this environment. This environment will regulate itself through a body or a council that include indigenous practitioners and people who have